Good morning. I wanted to give you some information about our next steps in regard to our key assessments and cover sheets and syllabi because we are on a pretty quick timeline. Now this information won't impact everybody in the department. Actually it is for those of you who are lead faculty on some of our professional core classes and in our graduate programs. So in the email I indicated who was going to be responsible for what. Okay, so as far as our timeline is concerned, our elementary redesign program review is due to EPSB on June 15th. There was a group of us who did meet with EPSB on May 23rd, and that meeting went well. Lots of good questions and responses to our elementary redesign, but we still do have program review documents, official documents due to EPSB that reflect this redesign work. So that's the reason for the quick turnaround. So all of our updated key assessments, excuse me, I just about sneezed. All of our updated key assessments, cover sheets, and syllabi are going to be due to the CNI office by 8 o'clock on June 13th. That will give me some time to go back through and make a few charts with everybody's work and get that to Faye and Margaret to submit on time. So this video and some attached resources will walk you through this process. Okay, so as I put in the email, those of you who are on tap to do this work include the following people. And so if your name is here and you are not going to be working on this particular course, you need to let me know because I've got to get someone else to do the work. So after each person's course and the lead faculty names, then I've indicated what you need to do. So we do have new rubrics, our initial and advanced licensure rubrics for the KTS. All of you should be aware of those documents because we've been working on them for months now. We did finally finish that work this past week and they are ready to be used. So again, I'll walk you through that process. But because of that new work with the rubrics, the key assessments and cover sheets need to be updated, and we also need to align our syllabi. So that's kind of what this whole process will lead us through. Okay, so step one is the biggest and probably most time-intensive piece of it, and that is to update your key assessment and rubric because of our rubric work. You know, we realized when we did the inter-rater reliability, you may remember in early, I guess maybe it was January or February when we had a work session, and I demonstrated how we were tagging Kentucky Teacher Standards across our program, but we really weren't maintaining fidelity to the standard itself. And so we realized that we are going to have a paradigm shift and do a more programmatic kind of assessment as opposed to just individual course assessments. Course assessments are great and they give us valuable course-related data, but we also need that programmatic view. So this process will help us get there, although there are some ways that you can still use the information that you've got or that you've been working on for your course data as well, which is just as important. So let me walk you through all of these steps, and I will demonstrate in this little video how this work happens, but I'll also attach several documents to your email so that you can see them more fully. Okay, so your key assessment is the first step. So you're going to pull your key assessment rubric, look at the applicable licensure standards that you've got, and then you're ready to get started. So what I did was actually pull the rubric, and I went through and I highlighted all of the Kentucky Teacher Standards that were linked, and that was my first step. Then I needed to choose which of those were actually applicable and then pull those from the bank. So if I am tagging 14 subcategories, then I may need to rethink really what I truly deeply want to measure. So I needed to pull those and reflect on those. Then my adjustments to my key assessment were the next piece of that. So some of your key assessments may be in good shape. Some of you may realize that your key assessments really do still have students at the knowledge or comprehension levels instead of at the application levels. So you may have to revise your key assessment task itself. So don't be afraid to do that. That is perfectly okay. We have found that to be the case already in a couple of key assessments. The actual rubric rows are going to reflect educator competencies, and they will not focus on the assigned task. So that is a difference in the way that we're using our rubrics. Now you cannot change the language of the cells. So in the emerging, developing, accomplished, and exemplary cells, that information cannot be changed. That is what's going to help us ensure that we are having a programmatic approach to our assessment. You can, however, change information in that far left-hand cell to clarify. So the subcategories are going to stay the same. And you'll see what I mean here in just a second when I show you an example. But you can add a little bit of information to that to clarify if you need to. Also, you may need to add some additional tags for your particular key assessment or area. So IECE may need to be added, ISTE, KTS, and InTask are already there, but you may need to add CAPE 1, you may need to add PGES. If you're middle grade, you might need to do AMLE. The elementary standards that used to be ACEI have been replaced by the CAPE elementary standards. If you don't have access to those, let me know and I'll get that for you. But whatever additional tags you need should be added to that. Once your key assessment is ready with its new rubric, go back to your cover sheet and make updates. So I'll walk you through what this looks like. So let me give you an example here. This is the existing rubric for an advanced licensure class, the literacy class. And you'll see over on the left-hand side where this is linked to KTS Advanced Standard 1. Okay, so you can see that all of my descriptors here really are about demonstrating applied content knowledge, but it's not really about all of KTS Advanced Standard 1. You can see that really it's really about this Standard 1.1, right? So all of those things that were reflected here are really about communicating concepts, processes, and knowledge. So for this particular document, instead of linking this to Advanced Standard 1, then this whole row would just be about this. Okay? Because what we're doing now is we're pulling from this bank. And so you can see what's bolded is the InTask link. So that's how my rubric is going to change. Now, if you take a look here at one of the courses that I've been working on that's assigned to me for updates is the undergraduate content area literacy class. And you can see this is the rubric that I have worked from so far. So this one is KTS 1, right? But you can see how it's got too many things in this one category. So I have to pull this apart and look at demonstrating applied content knowledge, what I really want them to do. So this may be an appropriate classroom guide for me. I may be able to use this as a classroom assessment, but it really is not valuable for a programmatic look at how students are able to design or demonstrate appropriate content knowledge. So what I've had to do, and this is the process that you're going to do then, is go back into the standard instead of having the entire Standard 1. Then I looked through and I thought, okay, well really they're demonstrating their content knowledge by using instructional strategies that are appropriate. So I pulled that row from that rubric bank, and I did not modify or change at all these 4 cells. However, I did add a little statement here that indicated that my students would demonstrate this through this, so that when my students actually looked at the rubric, they could understand what it is that they were doing to demonstrate this competency. This is not required. You are welcome to do that, but you certainly don't have to. So that doesn't change, but this can be adjusted slightly. Not the information up here, that's the substandard that KTS reflects. But here, this is what's specific to my particular class. I also am going to need to go back, I haven't gotten this far yet, but I am going to have to go back and add other SPAs or standards as they should be tagged as well. Okay, so that also means that my key assessment cover page has to change. So I'm going to make adjustments here. I haven't done that yet, I haven't gotten that far, but I'm going to make adjustments here to tag the KTS standards that are appropriate. And then later on in your cover sheet, you remember that chart or the list where you aligned all of the standards, you'll have to update that as well. Now, here's another option for you. If you really feel like that this new kind of rubric approach does not give you the kind of information that you want about your class and about the progress that your students are making on the class task, then you can do a couple of different things. So in one of the classes that I teach, we have a key assessment that is scored holistically, but it has so many little bits and pieces to it, and so what I do is I grade each little bit and piece. So in this particular case it's a book project, and so for the text talk discussions they have a little scoring guide that's a course level scoring guide. So I do that to give them points and grades for the class, but then when they attach everything on TaskStream, then everything is scored more holistically according to the Kentucky Teacher Standards. So you might decide to do things that way, particularly if you want to break up your key assessment into smaller tasks. Okay, so that's step one. We've looked at the rubric, we've pulled out the rows that are applicable, we have adjusted our key assessment, we have adjusted the language of the cells if necessary, or we've thought through how we're going to grade the tasks versus evaluate the competencies. We've looked for additional tags, and we've updated our cover sheet. So that's all step one. Step two then is to look at your syllabus. So because of their adjustments to the key assessments, you're definitely going to need to change your SLOs or update them and the evaluation section. And that may be it. That may be all that you need to do. But for the undergraduate courses, if you are in the professional learning core, you also need to align your SLOs to the professional core elements that are going to be embedded across the entire program. So I've attached a, actually I may not have shown it here, I have attached though for you in your email a document for you that's called Professional Core, and it will show you, oh there it is, it will show you what your course, what those 5 areas, I'm sorry, that's supposed to say differentiation, cultural competency, technology, code of conduct, dispositions, and what the group has decided are natural or appropriate fits for all of those pieces in your course. So these things need to be reflected somehow in your syllabus. So you'll notice as an example here from EMS 300 how we've added this paragraph to explain to students about the professional core standards. And then you'll also notice here some of this language that was here is now showing up in the syllabus. And then we're linking those, we're tagging those to the professional core. That's because we feel very strongly that embedding these elements across the program will help our students with their transference from class to class and across their development. Okay, final step. When you're finished with your key assessment and rubric, your cover sheet, when you're finished with your syllabus, then you are going to send all that information to me and John by 8 a.m. on Monday, June 13th. At that time, John will process the paperwork to get you paid. So for every course, it's $500 to make the adjustment for undergraduate. So if you are working with a team, then we'll split that $500 between those of you who are working on the team. Those of you who are graduate coordinators or working on a set of courses, your stipend will be $1,000 because you have more than one to do. And for graduate faculty, it's okay if you send us your work by June 20th as opposed to June 13th because we're not in as much of a hurry for graduate. But it has to be into us by June 20th so we can get you paid because it has to come out of this fiscal year. So I'll be around all next week to help answer questions. I'm hoping to reserve Combs 216 for any of you who want to come and ask questions or work in teams. Call the office before you come over just to make sure that we were able to reserve that space. But I want to be available to help answer questions as much as possible. I know this is a huge task, but we have worked really, really hard to this point. I'm really excited about the redesign and the potential of it and the impact that it will have across our programs overall. And I know that it takes all of us to get this work done, so I really appreciate that. And so I have a little go us cheer. We can do it, and I appreciate the work that you do for it. Let me know if you have questions.